Welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I am Connor Williams and we are back once again with another 24/7 news report. As always, we start this 24/7 news report with our headline news, but you know that already, of course you do, because you're avid watchers of this little segment. And our headline news today is that Everton have met with Schalke for information on 22-year-old American forward Matthew Hoppe, or Hope. Everton are planning a £2 million bid, and that's come from Erekina Kunar on Twitter. I think I've pronounced that right, Eric Akrim Konar. I'd love to tell you that we know loads about this. Well, I know loads about this player, but I don't. Unfortunately, I only know what I know from Football Manager and managing Schalke on there. And he's a good little player. Don't get me wrong, he doesn't end up being a world beater, but he ends up being an okay little player. I think, obviously, I've seen as well that he's had alright games for the US national team. I think this is a typical transfer under the Everton of this transfer window. He's relatively low fee, young player. If he ends up being somewhat decent, there's profit to be made on him. If he doesn't end up, it's only £2 million in the grand scheme of things, which is what I think Everton are going to do throughout this window. It's more of a buy smart than buy big, which, to be fair, after us spending silly amounts of money on silly amounts of players, maybe this is the best strategy for us moving forward. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Schalke obviously got relegated, had an awful season last year in the Bundesliga, rock bottom, got relegated. So maybe he wants to jump ship. We'll have to wait and see whether he will or not, whether we can get him for £2 million. I think Schalke will probably be grateful of the money as well, because obviously they need a rebuild, clearly, if they want to get back in the Bundesliga and if they want to stay in the Bundesliga. They're one of those legacy clubs, so it's sad to see them go down. We also have the news that Everton have confirmed that Sasha Razananskev will be leaving his role on the Everton Board of Directors as of the 31st of August. The change is part of a reorganisation by the board, so that should be interesting. It should be interesting to see who replaces him on the board. I'm sure Everton will release that in due time, probably after he's gone. But it's interesting to see a shuffle in the boardroom. We also have the news that Manchester United midfielder Andres Pereira has reportedly snubbed an offer from Everton and will instead move back to Brazil, according to Brazilian media outlet TNT Sports. The journalist said that he looks like he's going to go to Flamengo, who are very good. I think they won the Brazilian League last year. It's where Gabriel Barbosa plays for, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it's a bit tough that United, a United part-time player, subpar player, doesn't want to come to us. But I think this is a bullet, a bullet dodged. We don't need to be picking up the top sixes, throwaways, castaways. So maybe this is a good idea that he's rejected us. It does hurt, obviously, especially if he's choosing to go back to Brazil over joining us. But I think this could end up being a bullet dodged. From what I see of him when he plays, he's okay, but I don't think he'd be worth what we'd be willing to chuck at him. A loan deal wouldn't be the end of the world, of course, but whether we'd go for a loan deal or whether we'd just go for him outright would have been yet to be seen. In hindsight's a beautiful thing. It'll be interesting to see whether he goes to Brazil permanently or if that's just a loan deal as well. But like I said, this could be a bullet dodged. I've not seen enough of him where he'd excite me if he came to Everton. We also have the news that Everton are in Antwerp talks over Buta. They are in advanced negotiations to secure the signing of Aurelio Buta following the Denzel Dumfries setback. This is according to journalist Rudy Galletti on Twitter, who is reporting that the Blues are in advanced negotiations with Antwerp. The offer for the right back is to be around €4 million, and it's an evolving situation. This makes sense. It makes sense after the Dumfries thing. Obviously, we couldn't afford him through financial fair play, supposedly, and once Inter had the money, he was always interested in going to Inter. Missed opportunity, but we have to move on. Buta, I feel like he's going to be a bit like Hoppe. He's cheap, he's young, sort of low risk type of transfer. A bit like the Damari Gray, I feel, where it's a low risk price, and he could go on to be a gem. And if he doesn't, it's not the end of the world. Damari Gray, I think, has been... I quite like Damari Gray from what I've seen of the Southampton game in the pre-seasons. He could end up being a bit of a steal for us. Hopefully these transfers that we're looking at now are... And like I said, due to financial fair play, it looks like we're having to buy low, think smart. which in hindsight, looking at previous transfer windows, might not be the worst strategy that Everton have. Supposedly they are more stats aimed now, and they're going to sign players who perform well in stats as well, a bit like Brentford do with their Moneyball situation, which again I'm all for if we're going to start looking at the stats and analysing players properly. It saves spending silly amounts of money on players just because they've got a reputation, them coming to us and never getting the ground running, which we know plenty of examples. We also have the news that Nathan Broadhead has left the club. Nathan Broadhead has joined Sunderland on loan for the rest of the season. The Echo reported on Monday morning that there were talks between the two clubs, and obviously today he was announced. Sunderland boss Lee Johnson is believed to have identified a number of attacking targets in the last few weeks, and Broadhead quickly became the club's number one. The deal that has been agreed will see the forward head to the Stadium of Light for the remainder of the season, the campaign. This is good for him. He's had a very, very good pre-season. I would have liked to see him in the first team, but obviously there's a couple of players I'd like to see a little bit more, like Anthony Gordon. If he's not going to get game time for us, he might as well go out on loan and get first team football. I think him, Gordon and Branthwaite are clearly at the age where the club think they need to be out getting first team football, not playing for the under-23s. And if it helps with his development, I'm all for him going out and getting some proper experience. Sunderland, it's a big club. Stadium of Light, was a big club. The Stadium of Light's a big stadium for where they are. Obviously, they have been through a tough time of late and sort of trying to rebuild. I think it's a good move for him. Hopefully, he really kicks on. Hopefully, he develops well. And maybe this is a chance the club can see if he's worth keeping or not by how he does there. And if not, you never know. He might perform well enough for Sunderland that they actually want to put some money in for him. So that's always a possibility. We also have the news that Philippe Coutinho is reportedly pushing for a return to the Premier League, with Barcelona willing to offload him in a cut price deal. The Brazilian left Liverpool for Barcelona in a club record deal back in 2018, and he has endured difficult time in Spain as he struggled to recreate his Anfield form. According to Gazzetta, Barcelona are doing their best to sell the former Inter Milan man, and have asked Leicester, Wolves and West Ham to make a move through Coutinho's agent, Kaya Duarchabine. The Echo reported earlier this month that Barcelona's attempts to fire sale of unwanted stars has already led to Everton being offered the chance to sign Coutinho. And while the move for Coutinho hasn't been completely ruled out, sources indicate that the 29-year-old is not currently a player that Everton are pursuing. A lot to break down there, so obviously he's not been offered to us. He was earlier on, and Everton are actively pursuing it. I think this one's better off being swerved, not because of his Liverpool links, because I think all things considered and looking at the manager, I think we're past that, in all honesty. I just don't think he's... I think he'd come on high wages. I think he's very similar to James Rodriguez, who we already have, who reportedly could end up leaving. I think he'd ask for silly amounts of wages. I'd much prefer us to get a younger player, hungrier player who wants to, got a bit of bite between their teeth, something to prove. Then Coutinho, who's going to come on high wages and could potentially end up just being disillusioned and walking through the park. I'm not saying that's what he would do, but I'm saying with the wages he costs, that's always the risk. We do know that players, we do have certain players that I think sometimes walk through the park. But I think this is a good one. I'd rather Benitez, Brands and Co. go for somebody a bit young. So again, I'm going to put that down as a bit of a bullet dodged. We also have the news that Tottenham eye Everton linked Insigne. Reports in Italy claim that Tottenham are interested in Lorenzo Insigne. A report from Italian news outlet Il Mattino via Sport Witness claimed that the Blues have contacted Insigne's agent over a possible deal to bring him to Goodison. But now Corriere dello Sport via Football Transfers is reporting that Tottenham are making a move after learning Napoli are prepared to sell their captain for €25 million. Blues boss Rafa Benitez knows the 30-year-old well and had worked with him while he was in charge of Napoli between 2013 and 15. 25 million is about he's a very, very good player, Insigne. He was good in the Euros. I think that's a good price for him. Whether he'll come or he'll go to Tottenham is yet to be seen. You'd maybe hope that the Benitez link would draw him in. But it's another one that's yet to be seen. He'd play on the left, so I don't know what that'd mean for the likes of Damari Gray, who's currently playing on our left-hand side, or Richarlison, who plays on our left-hand side. But there's no denying his calibre. He's very good. He cuts inside. His finesse shots from outside the box, we saw it at the Euros. He's very lethal. He's a player I really like. I'd be interested to see how he does with the physicality of the Premier League, though, because he is very small. But I'm not going to sit here and say we wouldn't have him, because that would be silly. The only concern I do have is the same as Coutinho. He's an ageing player whose wages would be very big. 25 might be a good price, but he's not going to come and play for us. He'd want to be one of our higher earners. And finally, we have the news that Everton face a prospect of being without Richarlison for 2 Premier League matches over the next month. The 23-year-old was last week named in Brazil's squad for the upcoming trio of World Cup qualifiers against Chile, Argentina and Peru. However, FIFA earlier this year ended a temporary exemption rule allowing clubs to prevent players being released for international duty. That ruling was brought in should travel restrictions be imposed and there be a mandatory period of a quarantine or self-isolation of at least 5 days on the player's return. But as the Liverpool Echo reported on Monday, it's now emerged that ruling has returned to its previous stance before the pandemic struck, and now as a result, the current UK government travel restrictions, Richarlison will be forced to quarantine upon his return to the UK. Obviously, this is a tough one as well. I think Richarlison has given his all for Brazil over the last summer, and he doesn't look to be stopping, and I don't think he wants to stop. I think it's very obvious he plays heart out for his country. Obviously, it leaves Everton in a tough spot, and we're already going to have to manage his fitness because the amount of football he's been playing, we've got to make sure he doesn't get injured. But it just leaves us in a bit of a tough spot. Maybe the isolation will be the break he needs, but it's yet to be seen. Obviously, I think the club are going to let him go, but hopefully if he does have to isolate, maybe that's where we can rest him, because he is going to need a rest at some point. But that is all we've got time for today. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, comment down below on anything we discussed. Do you know much about Hoppe? Would you have him at Everton? Do you think Pereira is a bullet dodged? Insigne excite you or not? And are you glad we're missing out on Coutinho? Again, is that a bullet dodged, or would you take him at Everton? But yeah, don't forget to, like I said, comment that down below. You can follow myself and the Toffee Blues on Twitter. My links are in the description down below, as are the Toffee Blues. And most importantly, stay safe.